Hi folks, Future Tucker here. Just popping in before the episode starts to say that X and I gabbed an awful lot, so rather than put out one ginormous episode, I'm going to chop this one up into bits and I'll release it periodically throughout the week as I have time to edit everything. You're getting the first hour that we recorded now, and then, like I said, later on this week, depending on my schedule, you'll get at least another hour, probably more, because we did gab an awful lot. Hopefully you'll enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed gabbing with one another. So I want to thank him again for being on the show, and I will now drop you in to the episode.
Mormon Jesus. Mormon Jesus. Mormon Jesus. Mormon Jesus. Long ago, a spirit child on one of these planets was conceived through
is here! The loudspeaker spoke up and said, Christianity is stupid.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Squalitude. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts has finally decided to curl up inside my coat. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cat. Get over it. This is a news show episode where I cover stories in the news that are related to things like atheism, secularism, science, or I find just plain interesting. Joining me this week is X from the Utah Outcast podcast.
Howdy. How's it going, everybody?
And I figure what we'll do is I'll take one story, you take the next story, and we'll just roll from there. Before we do that, you want to tell everybody about your podcast and where they can find everything on it?
Yeah, I'm the host at UtahOutcast.com. This is a podcast and YouTube series where it is three out and about atheists living within the state of Utah. If you don't know, Utah and borders on Mississippi for the most theocratic state that you could possibly live in this country. And I jumped out of the Bible Belt about, 25 years ago and jumped into the Mormon Belt. So I went from being a Southern Baptist to a strict anti-theist, and we do shows every week. We do patron stuff. We generally have a good time. We talk about news. We do fun with real audio. You've been on the show a couple of times, Tucker. We essentially just lambast the right for about 45 minutes, where we listen to guys like Brian Fisher and Pat Robertson and stuff, and just kind of facepalm the whole goddamn time that we're doing the show. Usually we have guests. I mean, Tucker, like I said, Tucker's been on. We've when we don't have guests, we try to go deep into one topic at least. We've been adding this season a bunch of games and other fun little things that are just a little bit of a break from the anti-religion thing, the politics thing. So, I mean, we had a Bible or Bullshit segment just a couple weeks ago, and we've added some geek news in there, and we've even started doing like top 10 stuff that we call the Decalogue. So it's a lot of fun. You should come check us out.
Yeah. I have a blast every time I'm on, even if I can't remember what I've said the next day.
There are times where I am uploading the patron show, and I'm like, I don't remember any of this.
All right.
Everybody needs something to believe in, don't they, Reverend?
Bow down thine ear, O Lord, and hear me, for I am poor and needy. Preserve my soul, for I am holy. O thou, my God, save thy servant that trusteth in thee. Save him from this big-mouthed coos with a motor-driven ass who... Forgive me, Lord. I speak not in vain, but this little bitch provokes me so.
Oh, Jesus. At least I can stay in character.
Let's see. Okay, so the first news item that we have up here is from ChristianPost.com, and it's about Ken Ham. And he wants to thank the atheist protesters for the publicity. And he estimates that there are going to be millions of visitors for the first year, which I doubt highly, since their first opening day was 4,000 people. And I think about 40 or 50 of those were, I believe they were atheists that got their tickets paid for by Kent Hovind, or not Kent Hovind. What's the young one's name? No, Eric Hovind. Eric Hovind. There you go. So, Ken Ham thanks the small atheist protest of the Ark Encounter for the publicity. He said that while a small group of atheists are planning to protest the Ark Encounter, and they did, and it was fabulous because they changed the whole entire story that was being covered. Everything was going to be a fluff piece about this stupid boat in the middle of Kentucky, but then the atheists show up and the story changes to, oh, there's all sorts of bribery going about here. There's all sorts of separation of church and state issues that are going on. So the newly opened life-size replica of Noah's Ark, which I think they said it's about 500 feet long, I believe.
Something like that.
And this is a press release from Christian Post, so take it with a grain of salt. Of course, they're going to round up when they talk about this stuff. But they said that there have been tens of thousands of visitors in 2 days alone. I highly doubt that. I saw the pictures of the parking lot that Andrew Seidel shared with us, and a bunch of other people. Aaron Raw was taking pictures of stuff. David Silverman was there taking pictures. So you can't say tens of thousands were there. You might say maybe 10,000 at the most, but that's still rounding up in the first 2 days.
Yeah. Well, and there was the photo somebody posted of the turnstiles in the entryway, and there's nobody there.
They were like a couple of hours after opening, they were just completely vacant. Nobody standing in them at all.
Yeah.
And so the Ken Ham wrote on his Facebook post on Thursday, many news sources today, including my homeland of Australia, I'm not even going to try to do an Australian accent, are reporting on a small group of people protesting the life-size Ark opening today in northern Kentucky. News.com.au states that there will be a renewed wave of protests as if there's some sort of massive protest against the Ark. There is a massive protest against your Ark. It's anti-science.
Yeah.
One news source had the headline, "Protesters fire up as Aussie's Ark opens. Wow, this must be some sort of massive protest," he said. Now let's see. First of all, it's a group of primarily atheists, which I think it's the tri-state atheist group that threw the big protest.
Yeah.
Who will be protesting in a Christian facility. Not a surprise. No, they're protesting because you're lying to children, I believe. Secondly, according to their Facebook, they have just over 100 going to protest. And that's more than Westboro Baptist Church gets for just about anything. So,
yeah.
Let's see. They said about 112 people were going to show up, as he posted the screenshot. And Answers in Genesis president said that, however, that 8,000 visitors attended the ribbon cutting ceremony on Tuesday and another 7,000 came on Wednesday. No. I think they're inflating things. Which, even if they were pulling those numbers after their opening week, they would still be falling really short of their expected goal of, tens of millions of visitors or something every year.
Yeah.
And it's just overinflated. They're not going to hit the numbers that they need.
Well, and the other thing that I noticed is you saw that they gave a number of people complimentary tours, including Bill Nye.
Yep. And they had David Smalley going through there. He got a free tour. Adam Collins from Adamant Atheism got to go through there. A number of very, very vocal atheists went through this exhibit, and they got through it for free because that's the only way I would go through it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the press, all the newspaper reporters, TV reporters, they all got comped, and there's, going to be hundreds of them. And,
anytime I've gone somewhere as press, they don't make you pay for the cover.
Right. And, I can't see him doing a lot of business simply because of how expensive that place is, because it's like $40 for a carload of people to park. That's just the parking cost. That's not including getting in to actually see the damn.
I think the admission tickets are about $42, I believe, or something of the sort like that. And so I think that's more than I would pay to go to the local amusement park that we have here, which has a lot more shit to do than to go around looking in a boat.
Yeah. Although
a non-functioning boat, mind you.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I'll be interested to see what Bill Nye has to say about it, because he's an engineer.
Yeah. And I saw that there was a shipsman that actually looked at the Ark, and why do they have this bow that is made to cut through wake? The Ark wasn't meant to travel forward in the water. There's no propulsion system. They don't need the wake system that they have up front. And they even talked about the keel and everything else. And it was a really interesting article to hear this guy essentially destroy the structure that he built. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's really cool to look at. I mean, it's big. Massive structures always make me like a little bit excited. And especially that this one is mostly timber. But at the same time, it's such a goddamn waste. Over $100 million on this thing.
Oh, I know. $100 million and
$18 million in tax-free revenue that they're going to get.
Assuming
assuming they pull in that many people, they're not going to get the 18 million people. Everybody's really upset about that, but they're not going to get that 18 million because they're not going to sell that many tickets.
No, Jim Baker's amusement park that he was forced to sell to Jerry Falwell didn't bring in the numbers. PJ O'Rourke in his Holidays in Hell talks about going there for a visit to Jim Baker's park. And, he describes how just incredibly bland the place was.
What's the one that they have in Florida? Was it the Holy Land exhibit or Holy Land, something like that, where they nail up Jesus like 3 times weekly or something, or daily? I don't know.
Yeah.
That guy certainly gets nailed a lot. I think most places that you see the death knell of them are when they had zip lines.
Yeah.
Like when you're trying to revitalize shit. And so we've already seen that at the Creation Museum that Ken Ham owns. He had to open up a zip line course. And Fremont Street in Vegas had to add zip lines. And so I don't know if you've been to Fremont ever before, but like that's not a place you want to be after dark. You don't want to stray past Fremont Street. You don't want to go like 1 block east or west of that. So, and I could be fucking up the entire directions there. It could be north or south. I don't know. I was drunk. So
but there's
eating cheap waffles.
Yeah. Well, I've seen, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and read the book, so I know what you're talking about.
I love that. I love that movie and I love the book.
Yeah.
And Vegas to me is a magical place. I love that goddamn city. There's so many people that hate it because they're like, oh, it's so fake. I'm like, that's what I love about it. And I'm like, they're not putting airs on about anything. They're like, yeah, this is touristy claptrap,
Well, at least they're honest about it. Nashville, which, if it weren't for all the religious folks, would actually be the Eastern U.S.'s version of Vegas, but because...
That'd be awesome.
We can't have no gambling here, nothing like that.
Because Jesus.
Yeah. They, but the Grand Ole Opry was originally in the Ryman Auditorium, which is a former church. And when they outgrew it, their original plan was to tear it down. But because some people figured out that there's this thing called the historic registry.
Historical buildings, yeah.
Yeah, they got it saved, but it's like, and the city and the whole country music industry tries to cover up the fact that, no, they were originally planning on tearing down the Ryman because they don't care about history here.
No.
Well, except for when it comes to the Civil War. or as they refer to it, the War of Northern Aggression.
Jesus. I remember growing up hearing people in my family saying that they could trace our lineage to Jefferson Davis, and I'm like, that's not something to be proud of, guys.
Although General Patton did play with Jefferson Davis's grandchildren, so that's kind of cool.
No, I mean, but it's just the fact of growing up as a Arkansan and living in, actually I was a Texan. I was a born and raised Texan.
Oh boy.
But the family is all from Arkansas. So we're Arkansans.
Oh.
Like my mom's from Conway, which is damn near hillbilly. I mean, you know, you're Southern as shit when your mom comes from a place called Skunk Holler.
Yeah. Yeah, we've
and the dad, my dad was one of he says that when we're watching Forrest Gump, you know, there's the scene with the school integration.
Yeah.
He didn't remember that fondly. He just said, I used to be one of those guys that used to be throwing the rocks. And I was like, God damn.
Yeah, that's, well,
we haven't come as far as we thought we have.
No, it's like the college I went to up until the mid-90s had a plaque honoring Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And this year they are going to change the name of the building for the ROTC program from Nathan Bedford Forrest Hall to something else.
That's hilarious. Well, there is a college here in southern Utah that was called Dixie College. I'm not sure if I can't remember what they changed it to recently. Maybe Dixie State University or whatever the hell they call it. But when Brother Brigham settled this place, he thought that the best place to grow cotton would be in southern Utah, and it was going to be Utah's Dixie. It was going to be the state of Deseret's version of Dixie. And so for the longest time, up until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, they used to be the Dixie State Rebels. Nothing makes me laugh harder than seeing people out here in the middle of fucking Utah with rebel flags on the back of their cars. I'm like, you guys weren't even part of the Union. Weren't even part of the United States. You guys wanted to take out a good 20% of the West Coast, and actually more than that. Christ, they wanted Arizona, parts of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, all of it. It was going to be one giant Mormon state. Nobody lives here. Let me just step over these Indians here. Excuse me. Man. And you look into the sordid history of Utah settling, especially like the Mountain Meadows Massacre and all that fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That's our September 11th out here in Utah, let me tell you.
And I'm sure y'all just talk about it constantly.
I don't let them go a moment without thinking like, oh, we settled here in Utah. Yeah, and you massacred a whole bunch of people and blamed it on the Indians, you assholes.
Yeah.
It's fun being an atheist in this state, let me tell you.
Well, I mean, you know, that's one of the things I've been thinking about lately is it's like, you know, you guys are sort of the, you know, you're sort of the desert version of like the South.
Yeah, we really are. Well, except the Mormons here are much more, what's the proper term for it? They're passive aggressive, you know. They guilt their kids a lot. They guilt everybody else. And so when you're an atheist here living in Utah, all they'll do is just huddle their kids and get them out of your way if they find out you're an atheist or something like that. I've experienced my kid going to school and kids won't play with her because your family doesn't believe in God. Like, they're 7. You really? Really? That's the kind of shit you want to do? Man. And so they're just like very much, Amish in that regard. They're about to shun a whole fucking community just because, you know, you're not of their faith. So
yeah.
Good old Utah. This is a great place to be. Don't make it seem like it's terrible here in Utah. It's actually really fucking nice. This is a really pretty state, and we've got great local beer, but you can't buy anything at the grocery store that's over $3.2. So we're like Oklahoma in that regard.
Yeah, I grew up in Ohio, and until the mid to late 80s, everything was 3.2 beer.
Yeah.
Which was
there's still rules around it around here. We have enough local breweries that you can go get bottle High Points on the weekends. It costs you a little bit more, but it's better than drinking Pat all weekend. So.
Yeah, well, and Tennessee until about the same time had a weird law that you could be 18 and drink in a bar, but you couldn't buy beer or liquor in a store. And it was like, So you can get drunk and drive home drunk, but you can't.
Oh, thank goodness for Uber. I'm so glad those services exist now. They don't work so well out west, though. Christ, out here it takes you... People out east think that driving 20 miles to go somewhere is like the biggest goddamn hurdle in the world. Like, oh, no, I got to drive from Pennsylvania to New York. Oh, it's so terrible. Like, that's the distance of my commute. So like you don't have nearly as many roads to have to worry about. You know?
Yeah, well, it's like that here, but the problem we have here is that everything is, oh, you can't get there from here.
I ran across that when I was visiting my parents in San Antonio one time. I was like, why does it take an hour to get fucking anywhere in this place? Oh, because you got to go out and you got to get the belt loop around this place and then you got to go into here. And I'm like, this is so fucking inefficient.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything here in Utah centers around I-15. Literally, like if I-15 got shut down from some sort of Red Dawn kind of attack, we'd be fucked. There would be no way in or out. Well,
Nashville is more or less the same with I-65.
Yeah.
And what's great is 1 year we have every year they have this big thing that's called Fanfare, which is the country music festival.
Yeah.
And everything 65 going into Nashville 1 year was shut down to one lane. During the week, you know, when Fanfare was starting, and then as soon as Fanfare was done, they shut down 65 to one lane going out of Nashville. It's like, no, you guys have done this backwards. You shut down the going, you know, the going in out of Nashville the week Fanfare starts because nobody's going to be leaving, and you let everybody get in real easy.
Yeah. That's how I feel anytime I drive to Vegas. It's really a crapshoot going down there because there's a little bit of a corridor where you go from Utah to Arizona, then into Nevada. And there's a lot of times that fucking road's under construction. So they bring it down to one lane because there's only 2 lanes. And so, man, there's just sometimes where traffic is backed up literally for like 30 miles. Jesus. Especially on the weekends. You don't want to find yourself trying to come out of there like on Sunday night. It's fucking terrible. But anyway, we were talking news, weren't we?
Yeah. This is from religionnews.com. Pope accepts resignation of Brazilian bishop in sex abuse case. This is going to be like the first time this has ever happened.
He accepts the resignation.
Yeah.
What would you say otherwise? No, you can't resign. No, I would not allow it.
I know. Pope Francis, or as I like to call him, Pope Frankie.
Pope Fluffy in my book.
Well, there's a song, and I don't know who did it, but it's called Frankie Teardrop. And it's just this really weird, aberrant song, and it's like, Frankie Teardrop had a girlfriend, Frankie Teardrop got a gun.
From Suicide.
Frankie Teardrop shot his girlfriend, he shot her in the head.
From a band called Suicide, 1977, for anybody want to look it up at home. And nothing was heard from that group ever again.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's okay, Tucker. My mind works a lot the same way.
Pope Francis has accepted the resignation of a Brazilian bishop who was accused of turning a blind eye to suspected pedophile priests in his diocese, the Vatican said on Wednesday, July 6th.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you look at this and it's like, this is the first time, you know?
Like, oh my gosh, this is gone? What are they going to do about this?
Yeah. The Vatican said Francis had accepted the resignation of Bishop Aldo Di Cilio Pagato of Parabia. I don't know. Citing a section of church law under which bishops are obligated to tender their resignation if they are ill or if there is grave cause.
So how many inches into this kid did they find this guy? That's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
sorry, that's terrible.
Yeah, you know, and the guy says, I welcomed priests and seminarians with the intention of offering them new opportunities in life. Some were later suspected of committing serious wrongdoings. I made mistakes by trusting too much with naive mercy. Boy, you know, that sounds like what O.J. supposedly said at Nicole Brown's funeral, where he's like, "Oh, Nicole, I loved you too much."
Now, Tucker, if the glove don't fit, you must quit.
If the choir boy don't fit.
God damn it. The Catholic Church, man, they need to really get their fucking house in order. And this is not doing anything to solve it. This is just the next level guy that's resigning. It has nothing to do with the actual priests.
Right. And it doesn't deal with any of the crap, you know, where they...
The shuffle. The fucking Super Bowl shuffle that they do with these guys. And
apparently they're sending all the ones accused of pedophilia to places like Brazil and other developing nations. Because it's easier to, you know, hide them there, and they have so much power and influence. And
that's why it makes me happy to see, like, the guy in the Philippines, the mayor become president, you know, kind of start taking a strong hand against the Catholic Church a little bit. So it made me a little bit happy to see that.
Yeah, but he is a bit of a nut job.
Oh yeah, he's fucking crazy. He is the Filipino Donald Trump. He is the Malay Donald Trump. Not Malay, sorry, the Pinoy.
Yeah. And somewhere in Latin America, I don't remember where, the guy that owns or used to own Domino's he spent $4 million building a church that has been described as looking like a pair of tits.
We used to have a movie theater here. When we look at it on Google Maps, it looked like a set of boobs. It was great. I love that place. But, you know, he's making a church that looks like a set of tits, but he's probably not focusing on that.
No. He's also built some city in Florida that, you know, if you live there, you pretty much have to be Catholic to be able to stand it, because there's no porn. You can't buy birth control at any of the drugstores.
I just get Jonestown and Snow Crash the Raft vibes from this kind of shit that goes on whenever deeply religious people set up like flotillas, and they set up like, it's just fucking gross when they set up these communities.
Yeah. I just saw a thing. I didn't keep the link, so I can't post it. But there's some island that's disputed by a couple of nations. I think it's European nations. And some libertarian guys have bought it, and they're going to set up Libertopia there. Okay, guys. Good luck with that one.
Yeah. The only good sci-fi I've read about any, like, a libertarian society was called oh Jesus, I'll have to think about it. It's Freehold. It was a really good book. Really good book, but it was written by a very devout, like military worship kind of guy. Like, worse than Bob Heinlein kind of stuff. It's very much, you know, like, I love my guns and military.
Well, yeah, if you're
and I hate the UN.
If you're more extreme than Heinlein, you're out there.
Yeah. Goddamn good books, though. Good sci-fi, good stuff. But man, this is fiction, because this society would not work. It would crumble.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so the next one that we have here is we have remarried couples. This is from The Guardian. Remarried couples should abstain from sex, says the Philadelphia Catholic Church. Let's see. Catholics in Philadelphia who are divorced and civilly remarried will be welcome to accept Holy Communion as long as they abstain from sex and live out their relationships like a brother and sister. Fucking you.
What the hell's the point in getting married? You know.
I know. Why get hitched? There's some. I don't know. Maybe some people's brother and sister relationship might work like that. I don't know.
Tennessee, you know, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, if you look at the Bible's, you know, chain of everybody being born after everybody else, there was a whole bunch of brother and sister fucking. Apparently, I mean, the whole human race is incestuous, so
yeah,
technically. New guidelines published by the conservative Archbishop of Philadelphia this month also called on priests within the archdiocese to help Catholics who are attracted of the same sex and find chastity very difficult, in quotes there, saying such individuals should be advised to frequently seek penance. Don't act like a normal human being.
No.
Prostrate yourself, flagellate yourself, because same-sex attraction takes diverse forms. Not really. I mean, there's kink out there, but I wouldn't think, same-sex attraction is about the same thing as, boy meets girl, boy meets boy. It's about the same thing. You fall in love and you want to touch each other's naughty bits. That's about it. So, the Archdiocese also said that some people can still live out a vocation of heterosexual marriage with children, notwithstanding some degree of same-sex attraction. Boy, don't I know it. That guy that just bags my groceries. God damn it. I joke. It's not really funny, but there are a shitload of people like this in Utah. There was actually a TLC show where there was a Mormon guy trying to battle his same-sex attraction. It was like on national TV, and that poor wife was just like, fucking help me, please.
Yeah. There's
and the mental gymnastics they have to do. It's terrible. The Vatican is just as culpable as the Mormon Church for this kind of shit. It's just, no, you can be as straight as you want to be. No, that's not how any of this works, guys.
Yeah. Years ago, I worked with this couple, and it was obvious that the husband was a flaming queen. I mean, obvious. And, he was, he was a flaming queen. There's no other way to put it. And, they were married and happy and all that. And then, like, one day they got divorced, and his wife kept saying, well, his ex-wife kept saying, I just can't believe I'm the only person who didn't know he was gay. It was like, how could you not tell? I mean, I've known, plenty of straight women who were less feminine than this guy was. And,
yes.
I mean, it was, this is one of those things that's really hard to talk about because you hate to say something because you're like, oh, I don't want to.
You don't want to say the wrong thing,
right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with him being gay, but it's like,
no.
How could you not know? How I mean, and I've met plenty of guys who are married and seem happily married, but you're like, if you didn't know they were married, you'd be going, TikTok, honey, you've been clocked. You're gay. and it leaves me to wonder, are they just men who aren't, typical Tennessee macho types, or are they repressed, homosexuals? I don't know.
And a lot of people hate, we talk about this stuff a lot on Utah Outcast, and a lot of people hate that we'll talk about toxic masculinity in this case. And that's what keeps a lot of guys in the closet, I believe, is that they don't want to seem as less manly. They think that, liking penis makes them somewhat less manly. I've seen some bears that, would probably, I'm not very manly. I'm not a motorcycle revving kind of like, lumberjack kind of guy. I can grow a beard. I just choose not to, but there are some gay guys that would give me a run for masculinity. And so,
I had a friend when I was in college. His nickname was Bingo. He, you remember the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he gets into the fight with the opera singer?
Oh yeah, that's a classic. I love that one.
That's what Bingo looked like. Right?
Oh, really?
Big, huge, burly guy. I mean, this guy's, his hands, he could cover my face with the palm of his hands.
It's like the mountain from Game of Thrones.
Right. And he was gay, and he was the female in the relationship. I guess that's not how you're supposed to put it.
You could call him a bottom, I guess, or.
Yeah, but I mean,
I hate terms like that. Fuck it, I hate. I hate the labels we all assign to each other.
Yeah,
yeah. Just, we're just older men trying to overcome the system that was there before us and trying to make way for the new system. So,
yeah, I have a feeling that once, we shed most of our, when most of society stops being religious, that a couple of generations after that, people aren't going to recognize the terms gay and straight or bisexual, because it's just going to be, hey, whatever you rub up against that you happen to like, that's what you want. That's what you like. It's not, it's not going to be a categorization.
Well, and I think a lot of the shit that we see with the Catholic Church here, especially when they're talking about how, you can just pray the gay away kind of thing. A lot of this stuff would be remedied if they allowed priests to marry or to be in relationships.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of this would be just like gone by the wayside. You wouldn't have to fuck kids anymore,
Well, and I think
some of them probably would have still. I mean, of course, I'm just saying. I mean, John Wayne Gacy did horrible shit, even though he was married.
Yeah,
that didn't stop him. But
I think if we have a culture where people are allowed to admit their impulses, whatever those might be, that they're not going to, have the cognitive dissonance that causes them to
disassociate and do horrible
act
stuff
in ways that they probably wouldn't. I'm sure a lot of people who are Catholic and gay think, well, if I become a priest, that'll get rid of my gay impulses, and then, and
that's not to say that homosexual men that join the priesthood inevitably become pedophiles, because I hate the way they conflate the two goddamn things. That really pisses me off. Right.
But in the case of pedophiles, I'm sure they think, well, if I become a priest, I won't have I'll lose these urges for children, and if there wasn't the societal pressure, then they could feel free to go to a therapist and seek help to deal with it, rather than, burying it under all kinds of weird repression and. Yeah,
but then they just bury it under their own religious bullshit that just keeps layering on top of the already bad foundation that they have. So. Yeah. They find ways of compartmentalizing this kind of stuff. So.
Yep. Okay. I need to refill my drink. So.
Yep. Me too. I'm going to take a break real quick. Be right back.
With silence.
This is from the site magazine.uc.edu. Beyond video games, new artificial intelligence beats tactical experts in combat situation. Artificial intelligence recently won out during simulated aerial combat against U.S. expert tacticians. Importantly, it did so using no more than the processing power available in a tiny, affordable computer Raspberry Pi that retails for as little as $35. And that's what scares the shit out of me, because if you know what a Raspberry Pi is, it's the same size as a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, it's an Altoids box.
Yeah, and a 10-year-old laptop has more processing power than a Raspberry Pi does, and
unless that thing's running Linux, though.
Well, yeah, but it managed to outperform a trained Air Force pilot in a standard combat simulation. That's scary.
Well, we've known for years that, humans are the weakest link when it comes to warfare, Yeah. War games taught us that. I mean, Whopper was probably not even as close to as much computing power as you get from a Raspberry Pi nowadays.
Yeah. But
But that was back in dial-up modem days where you actually had to hook the goddamn receiver up to the modem.
Yeah.
Would you like to play a game?
But the thing that gets me is I can understand, a pilot being beaten by, some massive computer system that's a supercomputer, but a Raspberry Pi?
Well, here's the thing. when you take into consideration that a human has they have limitations on the kind of shit that they could pull when they're flying, because there's the chance of them passing out, or it's just not a very comfortable place for the person to be. A computer doesn't have to worry about any of that shit.
Right. But the I mean, in a flight simulator, they can hand wave away things like G-forces.
Yeah, that's true.
Stuff like that. So
I love this kind of news. This is awesome.
I mean, like I said, I could understand that something like the Titan supercomputer that they have at Oak Ridge being able to outperform a human being, but a little $35 computer that you can fit in your fucking pocket, that's just insane.
No, and this is I believe, from what I read in the article, it is a only like theoretical kind of thing. It hasn't been actually used within the field kind of thing. So it's just it's numbers crunching numbers kind of thing.
Right.
So I mean, you're still missing out on the major experience of a human brain versus a simulation. So
right, there's factors that could play into it.
Luck.
yeah, but still, it's
say what you want about humans, we are extremely fucking lucky. Computers don't know how to factor that shit in there.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of my beefs with the reboot of Star Trek. When they do the Kobayashi Maru, I was like, this is just a stupid cheat that he does to win the Kobayashi Maru. They could have done it where he looks up Scotty and talks to Scotty about it, and Scotty says, "Oh, well, your simulation is wrong because I wrote the specs on that ship and it can actually do more than what the simulation says." And then, they do that so it enables him to win the Kobayashi Maru rather than, just magically having the Klingon ship's deflector shields drop.
Yeah. Well, they got a lot of things wrong with the Star Trek reboot, especially Into Darkness. God damn it, that movie pissed me off.
I didn't watch it.
Good for you.
I watched the first one. I bootlegged the first one.
Well, I quite enjoyed the first one. I thought the first one was really good, but the second one, they were going down a rabbit hole of nemesis. They were fastly approaching, we don't need to retell the story. This does not need to be told.
Yeah.
It's not Khan Noonien Singh. It is Khan Noonien Singh.
Yeah. I read I read all the spoilers about it, and I was like, no, I don't even need to see this.
Yeah. It was, and I'm hopeful that the new movie is going to actually be pretty good. I like Simon Pegg. I like his writing. So, and from the clips that I've seen from people teasing stuff out there, that it's going to be a lot more Spock and McCoy, trading jabs at each other, which I will watch a whole movie of those guys fucking with each other. I love that.
And Zach Quinto and what's his name who plays McCoy?
Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Carl Urban is a very underrated actor. God damn it, I love that guy.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning of the 2009 Star Trek, he was a little rocky, but by the end of it, he had McCoy nailed.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody wants to see him playing, and sorry to go off into the weeds here,
no problem.
But Carl Urban played the best Judge Dredd I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. Never.
So you're talking about a guy, and you guys can't see this on video, but Tucker and I are doing video. But the guy acts. The only acting that Carl Urban does in Judge Dredd is from his nose to his chin.
Yeah, and he never smiles.
And he never smiles. And God damn it, does he not make one of the best hard asses I've ever seen in a movie?
Oh.
You don't get any Stallone. I am the law.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I've read the Judge Dredd comics, so I know what he's supposed to be.
Yeah,
and Urban was him.
Yeah, God damn it, I love that movie, and that's one of those rare gems where it comes along. You're like, yeah, this can't be that good, and you watch it, and you're like, fuck, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
Though, don't think too hard about how the drugs affect work and everything like that. But it's a good ultra-violent romp through the futuristic, mega cities of the world.
Yeah,
love that.
the thing that got me about the comic was how prophetic it was in a lot of things.
It really was. Let's see. What's the next news item that we have here? We have Google's Spot Mini, because they bought Boston Dynamics. This robot can load the dishwasher. So you guys might remember that Boston Dynamics made a dog type robot there a little while back that was really noisy, and it was cool because like you could kick it and it would still stay standing, but it was really noisy because it was all hydraulic driven. This current one is all electric driven. So you get about 90 minutes of charge for the kind of work that it does. But instead of it just being a headless torso that just kind of walks along and carries things, this one has a neck and a head.
Yeah.
And you guys really need to go watch the video for this thing because it's fucking creepy. But there's a video of it showing it loading a dishwasher and then, putting refuse in the garbage can and all that kind of fun stuff. And boy, it's an interesting video, but at the same time, you're like, I think we're getting close to the hunter killers and T-800s that are going to be coming along.
Yeah, because it doesn't, it really doesn't look like a dog to me. It looks more like a dinosaur. And then it does that weird thing like it's shaking itself to get water off of it, which is just fucking creepy.
Yeah, and it's not like a normal neck either.
No.
It's like it's like a human leg on top of a neck joint of a dog.
Yeah.
With the head at the end where the foot should be. It's really creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're saying that it's one of the quietest robots they've ever built because they did switch to the electrical system. And they're thinking that only because that, if you think about the usage that they're expecting to have for these kind of things, it's nowhere near the point where it's going to come to homes to do this kind of thing. And we're not anywhere near like a Bicentennial Man kind of robots thing, being in the household.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're one step closer. And so it just keeps getting closer and closer and closer until we're going to be transhumanism one of these days.
Yeah. That thing has got to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and if you watch the video, you can see the staging house where they did the building for this thing and where they tested it out. And it's obvious that this thing's ran into the walls a couple of times or, slammed its head into things. The drywall's all fucked to hell, but it's really neat to see it. They got a take of it loading the dishwasher. I don't know how many times they broke glasses or, it missed the garbage can or anything like that. because they only want to sell you on the positive things for it. But at the same time, it's really unhinging to see this. And I'm not going to say it's unnatural because I love robots. I love the way the technology has been taking over the world. But at the same time, it's like, that's super goddamn creepy. It's the uncanny valley thing. It's like, I wonder if we're ever going to be at a point where it's going to be the do androids dream of electric sheep kind of thing, where you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a replicant and a human,
Yeah. Well, that people talk about the Turing test, and back in 2001, I worked for Sprint, and we had the automated not robot, but you know what I'm saying, computer program,
whatever you want to call it,
that people would call and they would talk to, and constantly I would get people coming in and say, "Oh, I was talking to Claire," which was the name of the AI phone system that we had, and I guess she transferred me to you, and they wouldn't realize that Claire was entirely computer.
Yeah.
So
it's like Siri and Google and all that other fun stuff where it's like, you don't realize you're talking to wetware.
Yeah. It's, and the one thing that bugs me most about like, OK Google is you can't tell it that, no, you misheard me, you dumb son of a bitch.
Just give it time.
It's like, no, I did not ask. About fish nuts, I said Christmas.
One of my favorite things to do when I first got an iPhone was to ask Siri to open the pod bay doors. I'm sorry, I can't do that, Hal. Or not Hal, what's it? David. I think it was it David?
Yeah,
Dave.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Sorry, I can't do that, Dave.
There is a short story written in the 50s. I forget who wrote it, but the name of the short story is called A Logic Named Joe. And what it is, basically, it's about everybody gets, you've heard, you know what the Amazon Echo is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody gets something like that. And, well, one of them becomes sentient, and its name is Joe.
Its author is Murray Leinster.
Yeah. And one of the, not just one of them, but I guess a bunch of them become sentient. And, one of the things that somebody asks it is, where's the best place to hide a body? What did everybody ask Siri at one point? Where's the best place to hide a body? And so it was just, I had heard an old radio program shortly before that, which was a dramatization of that story. And, then everybody comes out talking about Siri, and I'm like, wow, this is where we are, and Murray Leinster predicted it back in the 50s. That's mind-blowing.
Truly is.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's the next one that we have here, Tucker?
It is from fastcoexist.com. This new material could help produce cheap hydrogen from water.
Hooray! Space travel!
Yeah. Well, not only that, it would enable hydrogen-powered cars.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with Hindenburg there for a second.
No.
Goddamn idiots.
Well, that was because the U.S. wouldn't sell the Germans helium. We had plenty of it.
Did you hear them finding the recent cache of it? That was pretty interesting to hear news about that.
Tasmania. Not Tasmania, Tanzania.
Tanzania, where we're just going to rape them for all their resources, because we're pretty goddamn efficient at that.
It's the American way. Well, and the reason we have the shortage, we're having the shortage of helium now is because we thought
we had a surplus.
Well, we sold off the strategic helium reserve that FDR started in the 30s.
Yeah.
Because most helium deposits are in natural gas, and for the longest time, you could either get the natural gas out or you could get the helium out, but not both. And so,
I wish we'd care more about the helium, because that is a very finite resource.
Yeah. But anyways, this article, splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen isn't that hard, but it is expensive, in part due to the precious metals needed for the catalyzers used in the process. Well, that depends on what your electricity costs are. A new method which uses cheap electrocatalysts to do the job could make hydrogen fuel a practical alternative to fossil fuels. And I have to point out, there was one of the big consulting firms. It was like Anderson. It was Anderson something. One of the executives who worked with them in just after 9/11, she produced a thing that for about what we were spending in Iraq for a couple of months, we could actually convert the entire U.S. U.S. over to using fuel cells instead of fossil fuels, but no, we decided we'd rather invade Iraq. Bingo! I found it. Accenture is the name of the, boom. Yeah.
Good time to cut back in with that one. Hey, we found it.
Yeah. I'll send you the link if you want to read it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's, basically they figured out for $100 billion spread out over a decade. So from 2003 to 2013, for about $100 billion, we could have we could have replaced all the gasoline-powered cars with hydrogen fuel cell cars.
Gee, and what happens when you burn hydrogen there, Tucker? What byproducts are released when you burn hydrogen?
Water.
Gee, I don't know. Water.
and I wondered what would what you talk about increasing the amount of water vapor in the air after running the hydrogen, and it turns out that in a city like Phoenix, Arizona, there would be more water vapor produced by the swimming pools there than there would be if all the cars ran off of hydrogen.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, because, I thought, well, you put too much moisture in the air, that can cause climate issues.
And it would probably cause, well, if it was as bad as we think it would be, because we're humans and we have no fucking clue of these kind of things, we would think, oh, it would keep solar radiation down a little bit. Maybe people wouldn't get sunburnt or, skin cancer as much, because water is really good at absorbing radiation.
Yeah. But, like I said, it turns out that there's more water vapor released by all the swimming pools in Arizona than there would be by hydrogen-powered cars in Arizona.
Which, hopefully, if you live in fucking Phoenix, that you have a swimming pool, because that's about the only way you're going to survive the summer out there. We're hundreds of miles north of them here in Utah, and it's hot as balls right now. But at least we don't have the humidity. But down there, it's just hot and sea level. Just gross. No thanks.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, what is it? The hydrogen produced from water, a new material could potentially produce the cheap hydrogen.
Yeah. Because they're using nickel and vanadium instead of nickel and palladium or other precious metal catalysts, which are insanely expensive.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. Didn't they use, or I'm probably thinking catalytic converters, but I was thinking of platinum as being used as one of the catalyzers.
No, that can be used as well. You don't have to use either. Well, nickel you kind of need to use, but the precious metals you don't need to use if you have a cheap source of electricity. That's the advantage of the precious metal catalysts, is that they reduce the amount of electricity needed to split water into hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah.
But, years ago, Scientific American did one of their single topic issues, and they talked about redesigning the electricity grid. And, for less than we've spent on the war in Iraq, if we wanted to convert to a energy grid where you had, you laid superconducting wires cooled by liquid hydrogen to every house in America, so that, people could have, they would run their appliances, et cetera, off the electricity or the hydrogen that was pumped to their house, and they could, run their vehicles off of hydrogen that was also pumped to their house. We'd come out so far ahead, but nobody wants to do that because for some reason that's just not as sexy as blowing people up.
Blowing those brown people up in the Middle East, that's just more sexy than having ultra science shit in our living rooms.
Yeah, but it was just insane because they had, their various, they had various things we could do for cleaner energy, and the ultimate thing was to have, superconducting cables, which have to be cooled to,
to perform.
Yeah, but they have to be cooled to, several hundred degrees or so below zero.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, if you have, you pump liquid hydrogen around, you can cool those superconducting cables, and, you can power all kinds of crap this way, and it'll save us all kinds of money, and we can do it with the technology we have now. We don't really need to invent anything, but nobody wants to do that.
No, it's much more fun to blow up exotic people.
Yeah.
That's it for another episode of the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes. It's also available on Stitcher. Follow the show on Twitter at tparkatheist and on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist. Email Tucker at trailerparkatheist@gmail.com. Show notes can be found at tparkatheist.blogspot.com. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fosnots.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.